You've delegated the task, and now all you feel like you're doing is answering questions about it every single day. So you're getting the pings, you're getting the quick asks, you're getting the drive-by check-ins. The work left your desk, but for some reason, the deciding didn't. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly why that happens and what you can change to make some fixes. I'm Chris Sapola. I have owned B2B service businesses for more than 20 years. I built and exited a profitable B2B service business, and I've advised hundreds of businesses along the way. This experience informs exactly what we're going to be talking about today, getting you out of that answer every question territory so your day has more room for the work only you can do, or the things you want to do, like just going outside. I've watched this pattern repeat itself across industries for decades, and I promise you it has some fixes. So let's look at that right now. All right, here's what your day could be looking like. You have handed off something. Maybe it's something really big, like your whole client onboarding process. Maybe it's something a little bit smaller, like a piece of your invoicing, scheduling. It doesn't really matter what it is. The point is that you have delegated it and you are so relieved because the work is getting done. It's not you doing that work right now. But what you're finding is before things go back out to the real world, quote unquote, back to clients or back out outside of the business, everyone's still checking in with you to make sure that they're getting your approval or that that final decision has been made. And you're also finding that edge cases are all landing in your inbox as well. So maybe there's some outliers that, they keep coming back to you. And honestly, at this point, it feels like you're kind of reviewing more than you expected to be reviewing because you thought you delegated that, but you still find that your brain is being occupied by the things coming back to you. So yes, your calendar is lighter when it comes to getting out of that client work, but the mental load is still there. The decision making that you need to be doing is still there, and your brain is occupied with that. Now, the nice thing is, like I mentioned, this is actually really common. And so what that means is there's been lots of studying about it and lots of ways that we can get ahead of this and get you out of that day-to-day answering questions. So what we want to be just remembering is that delegation is a lot more than a skill. It does come with a few different parts and pieces. And in this particular video, we're going to talk about the 5 levels of authority in delegation. Every task and every recurring decision that you've handed off sits in one of these 5 levels that we're going to go through. And you've probably not even named these levels, and neither has your team. But it's nice to see it in this way because then you can start thinking about how you can level up and get your delegation to a point where you want it to get to. I think something that happens too is you might think that you're at a certain level and your team member might feel like they're at a different level. That causes a lot of tension in between the two. And then what happens is you're both left wondering, like, what is happening here? You feel like you're over asked. They feel like they're under trusted, and really no one's doing anything wrong. There's just a bit of a difference in expectations, but that can be very easily solved. I just want to mention that there's a lot of versions of these types of ladders. They've been around management thinking for decades. So Michael Hyatt is teaching a well-known 5-level version. Jürgen Appello has a 7-level version in the Management 3.0 world. And David Marquette built a ladder of leadership built around the same principles in Turn the Ship Around. So what you're getting today is just my take, shaped by my own work with B2B service teams. Feel free to take a look at those models as well and see if they fit better for you. But I think you'll find some value in today's video still. Before we get into going over the delegation ladder, which I'm very excited about, I just want to let you know I do have a free community on School. It is called High Return Leadership. Every week we go deeper into these types of topics, and it is, of course, free to join. We talk about delegation, systems, team building. The link is in the description below. Joining takes about a minute, so hope to see you there. Let's get on to the ladder. So here's the whole ladder at once. I'm just going to give it to you. I'm spoiler alerting right now. So you can see level 1, do exactly this. Level 2, look into it, report back. Level 3, recommend, I decide. Level 4, decide, then tell me. And then 5, you're really transferring that ownership over. And you can see that there's some places where these handoffs can be happening, and there's some places where these handoffs stall. And so again, a little bit of a spoiler alert in number 2 there, because a lot of times this is where we get stuck. And I'm going to explain that to you as we walk through each of the levels. So level 1, do exactly this. It's pretty self-explanatory. There's nothing wrong with this level. It's the right choice for maybe a brand new team member, if you have kind of a one-off task, or if a mistake could be really expensive. Every working relationship can start here and probably should start here depending on the level of employee you're working with. The failure pattern though is staying here permanently. So if you can't get past this, I think you're going to find the next level is really valuable to dig into. If everything that you've delegated is still at this level 1 after a few months, what you've really done is you've handed off the labor, but you're keeping all of that thinking to yourself. So the hands are free, but your head isn't. In level 2, the scary orange level that we saw in the couple slides ago, what this sounds like when you're talking to your team members, hey, look into options and bring me what you find. So they're really gathering all of the information, but then you are still interpreting and just making the decisions based on that information. This is a level where you still hold the context that nobody really has yet. So it could be something like a new vendor category, unfamiliar territory, a decision with some history, maybe that you only have the context behind, especially when it comes to working directly with clients and things like that. The caution here is that level 2, it kind of feels like delegation because there's some real work happening somewhere else. So the research is being done, those summaries are hitting your inbox, and your team is looking busy, which is, we all love to see that. But we want to actually look at who's making decisions, and that is still you. Those decisions are still sitting with you. And that's the important piece of level number 2. Because at this point, you're still the only person in the business with any authority to make a call, which means that you are still the center of everything. You're that pinch point. And it's important to kind of understand that. If you're wondering, like, why doesn't my team get it? It's because of this. They're still coming back into your world to make sure that they're meeting your standards and understanding what it is that you're actually wanting. We're going to come back to level 2 later. But first of all, let's talk about number 3. So when you're delegating this level 3, recommend, I decide to your team member, you tell them, look into it, come back to me with what you do and why, and then analyze. And so they're proposing, you're still deciding, but now you're starting to have a dialogue with that team member. And this is where you can start transferring your judgment and your thinking to your team member. Because when somebody has to form a recommendation and defend their reasoning, they start learning how you think during your dialogue. And so what ends up happening is they get to learn what matters to you, and they can shift their thinking into what it is that you are wanting to achieve. This is really important because they not only understand what matters to you, but they also understand what you won't trade away. And so we're starting to mold the team members into thinking the way that you think so that you can continue to delegate at higher levels. A couple ways that this level fails. First is rubber stamping. So if you're just kind of approving everything without ever discussing the reasoning, that's a miss, because this is a chance for you to make sure that you are downloading your thinking and your judgment to that team member so that there's not a mistake. Because if we're not developing that judgment, it's kind of just level 2 with extra paperwork, and we really want to be avoiding that. And the second piece here where failure can happen is if you are receiving this information and then you're overriding it without explaining your thinking, especially if you're regularly revising the recommendations and you never say why. They are going to stop investing in any of that heavy thinking that you would really like them to be doing. And really what you've taught them to do is bring you some watered down work, and you've honestly really eroded trust with that team member, which will be very hard to build back from both ways. In level 4, when we're delegating at this level, we're saying, hey, this sounds like yours to call, keep me informed. So they're making decisions and just filling you in later. So you can see where these elevations are happening. I will say, though, that this level has prerequisites. So it really only works when the standards are written down and clear, and when those decision boundaries are defined. That can be a little bit tricky to do, but trial and error, and you keep on going. That's what kind of level 3 is for. You really want to be noting what standards need to be met and exceeded. We always want to try to exceed our expectations. You want to make sure people understand what's in scope and what to do to escalate if that needs to be a thing. Without those, level 4 is a bit of a guess for both of you, and you really don't want to be guessing, especially at this level. Here's where some breaks happen in level 4. If an owner is handing over authority without writing that standard down, really can't stress that enough. The team member is then making calls that maybe you as the owner wouldn't have made. It doesn't mean the call is wrong. I mean, it could be maybe a mistake, but it might be just different. And then what happens is you as the owner, you start taking that authority back because you're like, well, that's not the way I would have done it, without really thinking like, is it okay that it's done this way? Where's the opportunity to continue to communicate that these things are important? And what can happen here is that retreat or that take back can undo again months of trust building that will be extremely difficult to get back, because now that team member knows that even though they were quote unquote given authority, wasn't actually real. And that is pretty demotivating. And you want to make sure to avoid that at all costs. So if you see that this decisions at this level aren't going the way that you would like, the fix is to actually look at the standard and communicate the standard and not take the authority away. You want to be working together to get your thinking into other people's brains, not just pulling it back because you feel like you're going to do it better or it makes more sense. Taking that authority back teaches your team the wrong lesson. And we are on top. We are on number 5. So level 5, when you're delegating at level 5 to your team, the outcome's yours. Hey, team member, you own it end to end, report by exception and not default. You hear about it when something is maybe outside the boundaries. Otherwise, you don't. Obviously, you're still going to have check-ins and things like that. But generally speaking, your team member now is running that process and you know that you don't have to worry. And they also, because they know your standards, they know what to bring back to you when the time comes. This is the aspirational level that everybody wants to reach. It definitely has the same prerequisites as level 4, plus a track record. So that's the extra piece here. So you want that proven person, your written standard, a defined limit on things like budget, scope, and escalation to make sure that you're setting those boundaries and you're being very clear about where that person can operate and how they can actually take a process from end to end. Big failure pattern here that I think, if you're jumping from 2 to 5, people do try to do that. So if you're dumping, that's when you're jumping straight to that level and you're not building the trust and the downloading of your thinking that you would be doing in levels 3 and 4. So while you can be like, yeah, own it, it's all yours, it looks like trust, but there's nothing built underneath it. So it's very delicate if there's no written standard, no practice making those smaller calls, you're not having those dialogues. The first time something goes sideways, then everything collapses and both people come away thinking, well, delegation doesn't work. Well, of course it's not going to work because you don't have the foundation built to be able to give this type of authority to your team member because you haven't built levels 3 and 4. Skipping levels does not work. Delegation works, skipping levels does not work. So we're going to go back to level 2 because I find that a lot of people I work with are in this stuck on level 2. It's super comfortable and it provides some visible activity, reduces your labor, at least when it comes to being directly into the client work. So it feels like maybe things are moving along, and we're not really being asked to trust people's judgment. You're still holding on to that. So I see that a lot as well. So it's appealing, but it's actually a huge pitfall. And there's 3 reasons the handoffs can stall here. So first of all, again, those standards are in your brain. Nobody can be trusted to decide against a standard they don't know. That is not fair. And every judgment call then comes back to you. Those decisions, the judgment calls, everything is coming back to you. So, going back to the level 2 person wondering like, why am I still the person doing all of this? This is exactly the reason why. We haven't built that trust and gone into those further levels. The second thing too is delegation right or decision rights were never defined. So where is the decision threshold? What is your thinking behind it? How are you developing with your team that thinking so that they are very clear on what it is? And if nobody really knows what decisions belong to them, they're just all going to default back to you regardless of the size, because they're going to be afraid to try to make those decisions because they're not going to they're not going to be sure if they're doing a good job or not. And I can tell you right now, your team wants to do a good job for you. It's up to you to give them the tools to be able to do that through something like this delegation ladder. So third, a past miss caused a retreat. So you heard me talk about that a few times. So if somebody makes a call that you didn't like, instead of maybe sitting down and having a conversation about it, you just pulled it back. You pulled that authority right back to you immediately. Maybe you felt a little gun shy after that. And I can guarantee you they're going to feel the same thing. And it may feel like the right thing to do. But if you're very aware in the moment, then that's actually a coaching opportunity. It's rather than the stall preserving itself, which is exactly what's happening when you're yanking those things back. The cost of staying at level 2, sure, you might be a little bit more free from client work, but your attention isn't. And so that's going to prevent you from doing the things that you want to do, or how you're having some more time in your business to do networking, to do sales, to build a new product, or maybe just to take a vacation. So level 2 is holding you back absolutely if you're not moving past it. Okay, we can do something super duper easy here. And you can do it right away. You can do it today, tomorrow, this week, whatever you want, but do try it out, because I can tell you that once you get into these habits yourself, it starts to become much more natural. The team is building trust with you, and then you will find that you will be able to delegate more. So let's pick one recurring task or decision that currently comes back to you. Should be fairly easy to determine what that is. You can even do something simple like look in your inbox, see what the questions are in there. If you're in lots of meetings with your team, what are the questions that keep coming back there? In one recurring process in your business, do the same questions keep coming up? Like, let's say you're doing client onboarding and the template for the email is someone's always asking where that template is. Well, maybe we can take that a step further and have somebody actually build something where you know where that template is, as an example. And that person then has the authority to kind of build that thing for you. What you want to do with that task is you want to sit down with that team member and make sure that they understand this delegation scale, because if they know it, they can see it. And then you want to say, like, where do you think we are on this scale? And you're going to say one thing and they're going to say another, and chances are it's going to be different. And that's where some of that delegation tension comes in, when, you might be thinking like, why don't they get it? And they might be thinking like, I don't know what to do here. And so the scale gives us a clue on how we can determine if that tension is there or not, and where these cracks are. So really great exercise. It helps build trust as well, which is very cool. So then what you're going to do is you're going to take a look at this task recurring process. You're going to write the standard down. You're going to keep it as concise as possible. What is the standard? Where are some of the edges and that sort of thing? Have a conversation about it. You don't want to do this by yourself, because your team member has a lot more context about what they do in the day-to-day than you do. And you're going to miss out on some really important information if you don't bring the right people to the table to have this conversation. Then what you want to do is agree on the next level up. So you can see we are here. Now we're going to move to this level. And how are we going to do that together? And I think that's a super powerful way to help you get into good habits. It helps them understand what they need to be understanding and asking of you. And so you have this great cycle of continuing up the levels. And I think it's safe to say that there is a learning curve here. The first level 4 call, that's different from the one you would have made. For example, let's say we're at level 4. I do something differently than how you would do it. What are you doing with that moment? Is it the type of thing where you're like, oh yeah, that's great, I'm so glad you did it that way, it was still the same outcome? Or is it a coaching moment where you're like, well, here's how I think it should be, what the standard is, not necessarily how you should do it, but what the standard is, and making sure that everyone's clear on that and where those decisions lie in that delegation piece as well. And then you can update your standard documentation, for example, and continue along that cycle. And eventually what will happen is you'll find that this will kind of permutate throughout your business as you get better at doing this. And this is where the true freedom comes from, because not only are you removing yourself from some of those repeatable processes in your business, but you're also giving yourself some brain freedom to do some of the things that you thought you'd be doing when you first started your business. There's one sentence that we're taking away today. It's that you don't climb by trusting harder. Trust is great. You absolutely want to have it on your team. You want to start with a good level of trust, but you also need to keep building that, and not just your team members to you, but you to your team members as well. You climb by defining more, and that's how you're building that trust. Super important to think about it this way, because it's not automatic. It's not something that just happens. It does take some awareness and some work. But I can tell you that as you continue up these levels, you will find that delegation feels like it's getting easier, but in reality, you're just transferring your thinking, being able to free yourself as well. It's almost like cleaning out your closet. So instead of like all the scrapbook material that's in there, now you have room, for the cool things that you want to do in your business. I think too, as business owners, we get told like, oh, just let it go, just let it go. That's kind of useless advice, because letting go without definition is just dumping, like we talked about in level 5. Super dangerous to do, because if you don't have that foundation and that scaffolding to build on top of, your delegation will fall. And we've already gone over the reasons why. However, if you're doing it the way that I'm explaining it, you're going to build that trust, and I promise you, you will have more time. So quick recap, the 5 levels, do exactly this. Look into it, report back. Recommend I decide, then tell me, and own it. The 5 levels, obviously level 5 is the place where we want to get to. This is a quick, easy roadmap to get there. It's easy to explain, maybe hard to implement. So I would say just take it one day at a time. Make sure that you are working with a team member on this, not in silo. If you want, just choose one team member to start practicing this. Let them know what you're doing. I guarantee you they will be on board, because they want clarity just as much as you want more room in your brain. So there's a really nice trade-off there. All right, if you want to keep building these types of things for yourself and your business, go join High Return Leadership. It's, of course, my free community for owners of B2B service business owners looking to master delegation and systems and team building together. Super fun. Link in the description. Go check it out. I also work on a limited amount with a limited number of one-to-one clients with my Altitude Delegation Framework, where I build a delegation framework and fix one of your repeating processes in your business with you and your team. If you're interested in that, please comment below or send me a DM. Be happy to chat with you about that. And before you go, tell me in the comments, which of these areas do you think you're stalled on, and what's the first thing you're going to do to get you up to that next level? Thanks a lot for joining. We'll see you in the next one. Cheers.